Hello, welcome to today's Vendor Spotlight. My name's Lee Biggenden. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer and co-founder of Nephos Technologies. Today, I'm joined by Megan Brown, Head of International for LogicGate. Welcome, Megan. Hello, good
Thank
afternoon.
you, Lee. Thank you for having me on your vendor spotlight today. Glad to be here.
Pleasure to have you. And now, before we get into it, just a quick introduction to Nephos and just to paint a little bit of a picture. We're a data services integrator, and we're working with UK and international organisations, all shapes and sizes really, across three main disciplines. So data governance, high performance data infrastructure, and also privacy, risk and compliance. And we're working with those customers to support them through both professional services, technology deployment, and also fully managed services, depending on whether the customer is in their journey. LogicGate are one of our strategic partners within the privacy risk compliance discipline. And we wanted to take an opportunity really to introduce Megan and LogicGate, and really to talk through a little bit around LogicGate's position in the market, how they're solving for problems in that kind of arena, and also to share some insight on what Megan and the team are seeing more broadly in their customer base. With that in mind, welcome again. But as a starting point, could you introduce yourself and LogicGate to the audience for us, please?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, Megan Brown, I lead our international business here at LogicGate. We've been in market for 8 years, and I've been with the business for 6 years. And I now reside in the UK along with over 10 of our team members to support our customers in the region and throughout Europe and beyond. And at the end of the day, when we work with our clients, and I think the reason why we came together as partnerships was because we really in the market are regarded for helping our clients drive operational resilience within the organizations that they work. And we do this by automating core processes around what you had said, Lee, you're focused on as well: governance, risk, compliance, privacy, and ultimately to reduce silos within organizations and give and deliver really meaningful insights so that we can help our leaders within risk and governance and privacy and information security, the ability to make better decisions with those insights to lead to competitive advantage, especially in markets like today. And so we do this by offering a GRC, or governance, risk, and compliance workflow automation SaaS platform. And in partnership with you all, we deliver that as a way to help folks drive digital improvement and better visibility to their programs to make sure that they are a safe and secure and regulatorily protected organization.
Cool. Thank you. And I guess one of the things that drew us to LogicGate, so we do quite a lot of work in the data governance arena. And obviously there's a huge overlap between governance and privacy, and it's heavily intertwined, right? And what we see across the board in both areas is actually that a lot of organizations are under-resourced, underfunded in that space. And particularly within the GRC element, a lot of them are still running a lot of manual process. And it's quite, some of that still lives in spreadsheets, some of it lives in systems, but ultimately I think it's an area where customers want to streamline the process because it's becoming ever more critical for what they're doing. From your perspective, it'd be good to understand some of those kind of core challenges that LogicGate solves for, and what you're seeing in your customers, and I guess why they're turning to something like LogicGate to solve it for them or help solve.
Well, you said it best, Lee. I think you're running across your customers and seeing that there's disparate teams, siloed teams, disparate information. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we are now faced with more and more regulatory requirements that require us to really communicate cross-functionally and to get our documentation shared, make sure that we can portray and depict where we are on our own security journey and our own governance processes and procedures. I think of things like DORA. I think about things like GDPR that have come down in order to provide better regulatory oversight to the processes that we're all doing. And the one thing I'm hearing our customers say is, I just want to put a single source of truth. That's that concept of I want a single source of truth. I want a central repository whereby I can, when appropriate, share controls or understand the risks that impact other departments and work collaboratively with my policy team and my risk team and my third party team to be able to understand where the business opportunities, but also where are the risks within the business. And so for us, number one is how do we centralize this? How do we work together, work smarter, and not do such redundant work that we may all be doing in different teams? We're all creating the same board deck. We're all creating the same PowerPoint presentations. We're all chasing people for certain pieces of information. Well, why don't we centralize that? Why don't we bring to life what we've worked hard to create in the business, but leverage technology to do what it does, which is drive automation, reminders, due dates, all of that manual work. So I think the second big theme is not just one of centralizing for better visibility and cross-functional participation and engagement, but the second thing is just efficiency. We're all, like you said, lean teams doing more with less time and resources. And the last thing that our risk leaders need to be doing is nagging the business on certain things that they need to stay compliant. And so we see that driving this into technology, leveraging technology can be a great enabler, not only to the insights, but also an enabler to efficiencies and cost savings from that redundant work that might be happening. And then the third is just from a perspective of future-proofing your business. And so I mentioned it a minute ago that regulations are constantly evolving. That's a constant that will have. It's DORA, and next year it was GDPR a couple of years ago. There is always going to be a new regulatory requirement that we're going to be governing our organizations around. And how do you make sure that you're future-proofing? So you're prepared for that. You understand the gaps that you have today and where you need to go from a maturity perspective. And so I think that's the third thing is people just want to be prepared, not only for the scale of their own business and new markets and products that they'll be taking into their customer community, but also into the market, but also just being prepared for the future and being able to answer the questions that eventually either their customers will ask of them or the board will ask of them. And how do we make sure that we can provide a strong narrative about our risk and our overall compliance within the organization? I would say those are the three things we're seeing: being more efficient, reducing those silos, and then future-proofing the business.
I think accountability comes into it as well quite heavily from what we see. If we're talking to customers about how they do things today, and it's super manual, and actually tracking accountability. So like that, there will be a log of incidents, there will be a log of tasks. But actually turning, and this is where the automation comes in for me, is turning that into something that makes people accountable and make the whole end-to-end trackable is absolutely required, particularly in a larger scale organization. Yeah,
I agree, Lee. I think we hear this from our risk leaders, our compliance leaders, our privacy leaders, that it's not just in their teams, not only their responsibilities. At LogicGate, we have a phrase saying risk and security is a team sport. Everyone needs to be a participant in this and participate in identifying and providing visibility into this. And accountability is huge because we need our business owners to own the risk and be able to document the risk and understand what risk or compliance means to them in their business. And it's not a deterrent to speed or a deterrent to business decisions. They're not the no police, and governance is not the no police, but rather it can be an enabler to a competitive advantage if you can do it well.
yeah, absolutely. And in certain industries, if you can't prove these things, if you require an ISO certification to bid for new business, like it has a direct impact on revenue potentially if you can't prove these things.
Wow.
So I think it's definitely important from both angles. I guess from our perspective, when we looked at this space generally, LogicGate aren't the only game in town. We all know that. But what sets LogicGate aside from the other approaches, be that manual, be that other tools? Like where does it really shine? What's the I guess the USP, if you like?
Mm-hmm. And I was just speaking to some clients about this earlier today about how did they go about their market research, and ultimately why was the Risk Cloud selected as a vendor of choice. And for them, it was pretty similar to what I had talked about before, which was one, it was that automation, it was the ease of use, it was that kind of ability to meet them where they are today, but support them in the future. Provide that good confidence that they get good data in to make good data decisions. And so that kind of that overall, it's really easy to use. It's a nice modern UI compared to some of the legacy solutions. The second thing I would say is the ability and the speed that you can iterate it. You can change it. You can make changes to workflows, to fields, to reporting yourselves. And so we used to have a phrase at LogicGate called we like to digitally empower our customers, but really it comes down to speed to value. Our clients care about first, yes, it's easy to use, and that from the business line owners to the field, they're going to use it and they're going to understand how to use it. The second thing is speed to value. They can have something in the business driving value back quickly, getting out of spreadsheets, saving time, cost, and efficiency. And then the third is what I mentioned earlier, which is folks are ultimately signing up with us because we can help them, support them for the future growth. So they might not really be hit with anything DORA related right now, or they haven't really thought yet about the TSA regulation and maybe how that'll impact their organization. But they do know that maybe they'll be expanding to new markets, and they do know that they're going to need to adhere to a new framework like a SOC or PCI, or to your point, ISO. And they know where they're going and they know what the business is going to demand of them. And they select the Risk Cloud because candidly, of a repository of over 35 out of the box templates that give them an amazing starting point. So they don't have to start from scratch, but they can lean on our over 10 years of GRC experience with best-in-class templates, applications that are derived, that are created to drive value to our clients. So I think for them, it's a tool that's easy to use. It's something that is quick to deploy and drives great speed to value because it's no code, and a platform that can be there to support for future need and scale, while giving them some inspiration about how to do that and using those templates that are available for them out of the box, ready to turn on, but then can be completely edited for their business needs.
And I think the Risk Cloud piece is really interesting for me, the Risk Cloud Exchange. So
Yeah.
that market, they call it a marketplace, but that repository of pre-built, pre-existing templates to try and make life easy, fundamentally, for people. And I think one thing related to that we see is that we come across customers that don't think they're ready for this sort of thing. It looks too complicated. Some of the tools are really complex. You really need to have your house in order before you can make the most out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I find it quite interesting that what we've seen with LogicGate so far is that actually that's not necessarily the case. It's because of the ease of use and because of those templates. And as you were saying earlier, the ability to start small and grow. Like that's really important. Is that a key decision point?
I do. That's a common myth we debunk, right? That you have to have everything lined up, or you have to have all of your colleagues really aligned. Although that is the goal. We want to help you get there. We want to help create a table where everyone is speaking and aligning. But oftentimes we meet customers and they're just not there yet, but they can't keep building and they can't keep managing their program in spreadsheets. A lot of folks right now, they might be hiring a new team member to come in and run an aspect of this. So maybe to run their operational risk program or to run their third-party risk program. And the last thing I'm hearing my customers say is, I'm having a great new talented team member join my organization. I can't put them in front of an Excel spreadsheet and have them build out all these macros. I got to get them efficient tools to let them do what they need to do best, which is talk to our business, educate the business about risk and the impact of risk, not manage the spreadsheet. So we're seeing that as also a trend. But yeah, a common myth is I'm not ready for it, because in the past, the legacy GRC solutions were massive, difficult to deploy. It would take a year to deploy them, but more importantly, it would take hundreds and thousands of dollars to deploy them, from services costs and application costs, et cetera. And now we offer something in the market that's fit for purpose. It's intentional. We meet you where you are. So if it's, like I said, it's about driving value where there's the most critical need, and then being there when you're ready to scale to other applications and other processes within your business. And I think that's where the Risk Cloud Exchange is a really nice tool for folks who are trying to understand how to do this and where to start and how to go about this. When you think about your own program, you think about your own requirements, oftentimes you're looking at the market and it can look very similar. And I think one of the things that we offer in the Risk Cloud Exchange is a place where people can go very clearly. They can see the breadth and depth that we have from a domain and content perspective and GRC. And they can do a little menu shopping and they can see what we have in regards to asset management or privacy management or ESG. They can see the kind of the functionality that we offer, but also we let them know where could this also help them. For example, our ESG applications are really linked to risks because we believe that you should be able to tie your social impact initiatives to risks and have a story and a narrative there. We also believe things like, let's say, enterprise risk management might eventually have an aspect of it where you want to quantify your risks. And so we will have a connection to things like risk quantification, which is embedded in the platform. And so for folks who are listening to this and want some inspiration, I would highly encourage you to go to rcx.logicgate.com. It's Robert Charlie X-ray, so rcx.logicgate.com. And go and explore the breadth and depth. And I think this is from DPO to CISO. This is where you can see where we can help to digitize and make the process easier for people. And then I think the best thing, Lee, is that when our customers have invested in the Risk Cloud, they actually have the ability to one-click download to this marketplace into their environment to poke and play. So if they're using us today for, let's say, cyber risk management and controls compliance, but they have the desire to do more business resiliency or to the desire to do more critical supplier management in their environment, they can go to the application marketplace and with one click, they can download our templates. They can see sample reports and they can see sample workflows, see if it is the right fit for them. And so it allows them to do that as well as our new applications that we put out there. So I do think it's a really nice way for folks to start small. We talk about incremental value. So start small, drive incremental value for the business, but then have the benefit of being inspired about how else can they add value cross-functionally or to the organization within the Risk Cloud.
Yeah, and I think that's that incremental value piece. We see it everywhere at the moment. I think for a lot of organizations, they try and bite too much off in one go, and it becomes a never-ending program. But actually, obviously, all the while they're doing this, they're spending budget, and that brings focus. And you absolutely need to be able to demonstrate that incremental value to make a program successful, because people and companies are impatient generally for that sort of thing. So yeah, I totally get that. I guess we talked about LogicGate and the platform and some of the benefit it brings. Are there any particular customer examples you can share with us that kind of put a little bit of color or context around that?
Yeah, there's loads. And I think a couple come to mind for us. One in particular is a financial services organization based in London. They had come to us using a system. They had built out on a current provider many applications in their GRC program, but they had gotten it to a place where it was so over customized and it was too rigid. They just couldn't flex and scale to support the future need of their business, but also the application and the platform that they were using, it just wasn't talking. It wasn't cross-functional. It didn't connect the data like they wanted to. Ultimately, they had a vision where they said, I want to see at the risk level, I want to see all my controls that are linked to it. I want to see any incidents that are linked to that risk. I want to see my risk assessments over time. And ultimately, I want all of that to roll up to a parent risk score linked to my KRI thresholds. That's the desire. My desire is that I can go to a control and see what's linked to it, or I can go to a risk and see what's linked to it, and I don't have disparate information. So this is a Quinity. We help them with that. It was things like risk management, internal audit. The DPO came in. We're helping them with privacy. We're helping them with things like carbon accounting and impact on ESG initiatives. But it's this whole concept of how do we get out of spreadsheets, digitize it, leverage the power of this workflow automation to provide good insights when you need it at your fingertips. And so for them, it was a cost savings, it was a time savings play for them. And it was cost, time, efficiency, and then it was this ability to really think about the business and how do they support their customers? How do they support the internal business owners as well by digitizing processes that were just manual, labor intensive and getting them out of spreadsheets and emails. So that was a Quinity. And And then there's loads of other examples. I think also recently an airline in Europe came to us and they were really forward thinking about Dora. So they came to us and said, "Hey, we've got ICT management or incident management. We know we're doing risk management. We're doing controls compliance. We're doing supplier management, but it's all isolated. It's not connected. If tomorrow someone asks us to describe a narrative about how we're Dora audit ready or how we're Dora compliant, we'd have a really hard time to do it. And so LogicGate, we need you. We need you to get us out of these spreadsheets, put it into one system, and really make sure we maintain that they consider a Dora audit ready state to meet the needs of their customers, to meet the needs of the regulator, and if that happens. And yeah, so I think those are just isolated, of course, two kind of different experiences, but whether you're a technology company or you're a financial institution, we're all trying to do this, I think, similar things today, which is save time, save money, and reduce risk when we can. So that's ultimately what we help you do: save time, save money, and reduce risk.
Yeah, and I think it's, you said it earlier, the challenges that organizations have around new regulations and being able to flex and adapt is key, right? You can't. We've got one of our customers actually that are in that kind of position where they built up such a legacy over time, and anything new that comes along is a massive lift to adapt to.
Yeah.
And we see that quite often. It's a challenge for people, and not really their fault. Historically, there wasn't an option, right? So people are left to unpick these things and then rebuild. It's challenging for everyone. We're very close to time, and I guess as a bit of a closing piece, I like to think of it as a Jerry Springer moment. But I don't have a Steve, unfortunately. But if you could give the audience maybe one piece of advice in terms of when they're going through these programs, take the LogicGate hat off for a second. But when they're going through these programs, if you could give them one piece of advice in terms of driving towards that successful outcome, what would it be?
So I always lean to that concept of incremental value, because when we are trying to get support within an organization, whether it's an audacious goal of kind of driving towards a risk-aware culture or whatever it may be, you want to drive value. You got to drive value to the business. You got to drive value fast. So what I would say is, think about, of all the things that you need to do, what is the most meaningful win that you can have to the business? Focus there. And it might be when you think about risk and compliance, and oftentimes our clients, they have a list of things that they want to do and get out of spreadsheets and digitize and automate and all this stuff. But ultimately, what I always ask them to think about is, with or without Risk Cloud, what is the most meaningful aspect of your program today that you seek to drive value for the business, and why and by when? So just have a clear understanding of, hey, from a priority perspective, from phase one, what's the most meaningful impact to the business? And it might not always be what we think it is. We might think it would be risk management for an organization, but you might be working in healthcare. And for you, healthcare, it's about maybe incidents and complaint management and responding back to your patient community in a really meaningful, quick way, in a documented way. Yes, to meet the regulatory requirements, but also to provide and deliver great care. So every organization is different about what is that initial landing area where you seek to drive value to the business, but anchor to that. And the second thing is, I would say, don't go in it alone. So that's why Nephos is here. That's why we're here together to help and just share what we're seeing and connect in the community and talk to your peers, of course, about what they're doing. Learn from others. If others have had, like you had said, an experience where you tried to boil the ocean at once, and try and learn from your peers, but don't go in it alone. So definitely reach out. I would just say, if it was me, I'd reach out to my friends at Nephos here to understand from a data governance perspective, what are we doing, but what are the other aspects of privacy and risk that we should be considering? And your team, along with the technology, can help them think about how that phases. So if it's not as clear as where you want to start, don't go it alone. Get some outside perspective here and an outside look at maybe where you can drive value. So hopefully that's helpful. But
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what we see.
No, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for taking the time out today to do this. I think it's always good to get outside of a product demo, outside of those things, just a bit of a high level view on what's going on in the industry and sharing some more stories, if you like. So thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Really good to speak to you. Thanks for your time,
Cool.
Megan.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lee, for having me. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.